Hello, tea timers. Let me just stir my tea. Have a little sip. Gosh, that's delicious. Takes me back to England every time I sip real tea. Thousands of miles I am transported just in the sip of some tea. So this week, what I want to talk to you about is how you can save money on some things and how you should not be skimping on others. So first of all, I'm going to show you a carrier for art supplies. Now, this is my daughter's. She got this as a Christmas present. These are all her fabulous markers. She likes to use Copic and sometimes Prismacolor, but Copic are her favorite brand. And these are amazing markers. If you want to use markers, Prismacolor and Copic are amazing brands for those, which I would not buy cheap markers. I would go for Copic. But this container is a container made by a company that makes art supplies for people. And so it's made specifically for the art market. Now, it's not cheap, which is why it was a Christmas present from one of her siblings. Now, this is what my boys use and my students that I teach each week. This is what I recommend that they get. And this does exactly the same thing, but it's not marketed to artists. It's marketed to contracting people and builders. This was from a store called Harbor Freight that sells very cheap products for doing contracting and stuff around the house and stuff like that. And they have a coupon for 20%. So this was $5 normally, as opposed to the other one I think was probably 25 or maybe more. Some of those are $50 just to carry your paints around. So these are fabulous and they're not expensive. Now, with art materials, you can go one way or the other depending on what it is. Never buy cheap paints. Ever, ever, ever. Try and get a deal on your paints, but don't buy cheap paints. So I buy the Winsor & Newton Daniel Smith for watercolor. Never buy cheap watercolor paper. Always buy decent quality Strathmore, £140. But saying that, you can buy very inexpensive brushes and produce a really nice painting. So I got this brush set for about $3 at IKEA. I'm not sure how much they are now, but there's 5 brushes in there. And I've actually used these with my students and they produce fabulous paintings using them. You can eventually move up to decent quality brushes, but you can produce fabulous paintings with cheap brushes. So with acrylic paint, I never buy cheap acrylic paint. This is Golden, this is Winsor & Newton Galleria. 2 of my favorite brands, but there are other really decent brands out there as well. And then, see, with those cheap brushes, you can do like fabulous little paintings on very cheap matte, these are called matte boards or matte canvases. They're a board as opposed to a canvas that's wrapped around a frame. So what I like about these is they're not bouncy. When I put my brush on, it doesn't go boing up and down like a little trampoline. I don't like that feeling with canvas. Maybe you do. You can get cheap canvases. I buy these in a 6-pack for about $2.50. And you can do fabulous paintings on these matte boards. I think actually I should show you one of my paintings, but you've probably seen it before. But anyway, so there's some ideas for you. So if you are collecting your art materials, try and find a fabulously cheap bin to put your materials in. You can paint this, put stickers on it, you can cover it with all sorts of fabulous colors, and you can make it your own and make it really hip and cool looking. You don't have to leave it looking like it came from the building supply store. So there's some ideas for you, and I will see you next week for a nice cup of tea and some little art info. Have a great week.